Today I'd like to talk to you about defending against the Queen's Gambit. The Queen's Gambit is this opening. D4, D5 by black, and now C4. And we're going to think about how to defend this from the black point of view. In the opening, get your pieces out, get a stake in the centre, and get castled, you know. There's a sort of a fourth rule, which is make sure you can get your rooks out. A lot of people leave the rooks in the corners, and I'm anxious that you don't do that. And we'll have a look at that, see how that goes. Cecil Purdy used to say, always rate an opening according to the prospects that it offers young, ambitious rooks. Think about your rooks keen to get into the play, and are you going to let them? So there's the Queen's Gambit. We've both got a stake in the centre, black and white, but white's trying to distract us a bit with this C4 move, and can we respond in a good way? I mean, most moves here are at least playable, so if I say one is better than another, people still play the rest. So, but let's have a look. If you take the red arrow on C4, then you're left with two white pawns on the green squares there against one black pawn. You'll be outnumbered in the centre, and if you're trying to keep a stake in the centre, that's not the way to do it. So I don't recommend that you take. Develop a piece. There are three pieces you can move sensibly, minor pieces. The two knights to the squares in front of the bishops, and the bishop to f5, but all of those three moves allow white to take your pawn, and you won't be able to take back with a pawn of your own, so again you're going to get outnumbered 2-1 in the centre, so don't do that. Lastly, you can try protecting with a pawn. Now I'm going to recommend that you play e6, and if you've heard me at the club moan about people locking their bishops in, well that's still a problem, but why do that? Well, I think it's because the other move isn't so easy to play. If you play c6, allowing the bishop to come to f5, what could be more natural? But let's see how it happens if we keep playing natural moves. Knight c3, knight f6, knight f3, bishop f5, there you go. But now it starts to go wrong. C takes, and queen to bishop 3 by white. And now the poor old b pawn is being attacked. Now, how can we defend it? We can move the queen to c7 or c8, but that abandons the d pawn. You can move the queen to d7, but that'll probably be hit by a knight on e5, and you'll have to think again. The best way to defend it probably is to move the bishop back to c8. But if that's the best idea, then I don't think bishop to f5 was the best move. And lastly, you can move the pawn to b6, and you might get away with that, to be honest, against a lot of junior players, but it's not the right move. If white knows what they're doing, they'll play e4, and if you take, they play knight e5, threatening mate on f7, and then if you cover that, you're going to get hit by bishop to b5 check, and this is just a difficult position for black, and black loses a lot of games in this position. So, well, c6 is okay, it's a defence, but you need something better on move 4 than bishop to f5. People play takes on c4, people play a6, people play e6. But there's, it doesn't seem to me that that's a straightforward way to play. It's not easy to remember, it's not easy to play. So I recommend that we're going to play our pawn from c4 to, after c4 to play e6, and that's our defence to the Queen's Gambit. The remaining moves of the system follow up with knight f3, knight f6, or bishop to e7. There's reasons for choosing one or the other, but knight f6 is easy enough. And follow it up with bishop to e7, the other move, or you can play knight on b to d7, which is, again, there are reasons why you might prefer that. But after bishop to e7, castles, then move the knight to b7, on b to d7 move, And now we've got to think about our poor old bishop on c8. How are you going to get that out? Well, b6 is a try here, and a6 is a try. The plan there is that at some point we're going to play d takes c4, and then we're going to play b5, and then we'll have a nice spot for our bishop on b7 with a nice long diagonal to look at. All right. So that's the plans for the minor pieces. Now, our rooks on f8 and a8, how are they getting into the game? Well, you can't rely on white opening up the game for you, and so the reason that the knight comes to d7 is so that we can play this c5 move, and then we've got some career prospects for our young ambitious rooks. They can go onto the c-file, and I'll show you a game a bit later on where c-file played a big role in black's defences. So that's the setup. Do have a look at it, do remember it, either with a6 or b6, and pretty well you can play that against anything that white does apart from 1e4. So you can always play the same sort of system. Your pieces always come to the same sorts of squares, and it's not too hard to play or to remember. And apart from this knight coming to d7, I think it's they're very natural moves once you play d6. So that's the system. It's called a Swiss defence, named after a Swiss chap called Henneberger, who played it with Alekin, and played it against Alekin, and Alekin very quickly took it up. So that's a good advert for the system. So then we'll play the Swiss defence against the Queen's Gambit. Let's have a look, fill in some of the moves and see how that looks. So after e6, knight c3, knight f6, bishop to g5 by white, and now knight on b to d7. Bishop e7 is fine, but knight on b to d7 I think is the right move. It's where you want to put the knight anyway, to leave that c-pawn free. And it sets a little trap. White will probably know it, but they might not, and so no harm setting a good trap with a good move. The trap is perhaps that white thinks that now you've interfered with the defence of the d-pawn by your queen. The d-pawn's now only defended by the pawn and the knight's really only pretending to defend the pawn because it's pinned against the queen. So white may be able to win a pawn. So takes, and takes, and there is this pin, but in fact you can ignore it with knight takes d5. White thinks it's their lucky day. Bishop takes queen, but bishop b4 check. Oh dear. White's only got queen d2 check, and then after takes, and takes. Well, yes, we did lose a pawn, but we've won a piece. So that's a little trap there for white to blunder into, an F-element trap. So that's after a knight on b to d7, and instead white should play something like e3, bishop e7, knight f3, and castles. And now white's got a choice. We've still got this tension between the pawn on c4 and the pawn on d5, and if white plays bishop to d3, planning to castle perhaps, and developing a piece, then we can play d takes c4, and after white takes back, they've actually taken two moves to get to c4 rather than one move that they could have played. So white would prefer it if they played some other move on move 6, and then you take on c4, and then white will have gained a move. They'll have only played their bishop in one move rather than two. So the move that white most often chooses here is rook to c1, and now we'll play our magic move a6, and we're going to move our b pawn forward, having captured on c4. Now after this there's a whole bunch of little variations. If white really doesn't want to move the bishop, well, I think it's probably okay. By now it's okay, you've run out of waiting moves, and so has white. So taking on c4 is fine, or poking the bishop. So what the main game that I'll show you between Capablanca and Alekin, Capablanca played a3, and Alekin poked the bishop on g5. The bishop came back, and now d takes c4, bishop takes c4, b5, bishop goes away, in this case to e2, and now there's some pressure down on your c pawn. worth taking account of, and I think black should have played c5 here. Black says, Alekin says that black is okay after bishop e2, bishop to b7, but I think white cannon should have played b4. Alekin says black's okay, Kasparov says he isn't. So let's play c5 anyway, and that should be an okay game, and we'll follow it up with well, if you get into this sort of position, natural moves I'm sure are fine. There's a game that instead of white playing, let's just undo some of these, instead of white playing a3 here, there's a game that I know about where white played bishop to d3 straight away, and after d takes c4, bishop takes c4, b5, bishop went away this time to d3, and we're going to follow it up with bishop to b7, c5, queen to b6, rook on f to d8, and rook on a to d8. So our bishop's got a nice diagonal, our young ambitious rooks have got nice files to look at. Black's got a very easy, very natural sort of game, very safe, and actually you can play this position for a win, although it is equal. That was an old game between Gregory and Daniszewski in 1909. Instead of bishop to d3 and instead of a3, the most challenging reply, well, the most challenging replies are capturing on d5, which we'll look at in a separate video, or c5. And if white plays c5, then c6, I think, by black, and we're going to hit that c pawn that's advanced. And the original game between Alekin and Henneberger went b4, a5, a3, takes and takes, and b6, pounding away at that pawn. So we're going to clear up the queen side first. In the game, white went bishop to f4, takes and takes, and then black was able to invade on the queen side with rook to a3, poking the knight, bishop to d3, queen to a5, queen to d2, and now bishop to a6, developing the bishop, and really rather exchanging it. Takes and takes, and black is just fine here. White can't castle at the moment. Black's got easy development, and they have some advantage. In the game that I've got on the database, it actually says that white won this game. Well, that's Alekin for you. Although in the final position I've got for this game, black is winning, so I'm not quite sure what happened there. But anyhow, good advert for the Swiss defence by Swiss player Henneberger. If a different way of approaching this, perhaps after a different move by white, instead of bishop to f4, why did white play bishop to f4? It's to clamp down on this E5 idea, and well, how are you going to get away with playing that? Well, let's play bishop to d3 by white, and now takes on c5, takes on c5, and e5. It looks like it's defended, not enough, attacked more times than it's defended, but something like d takes c5 here, the knight goes away to e8, and you'll win one of those pawns on e5 or c5, or maybe both. So this is okay for black, and although your pieces are on the back rank at the moment, this bishop now has a diagonal to get out along, and again black is fine. I'll put up another video, I'll put up 3 more videos, one showing the exchange variation, one showing the rest of that Capablanca Alekin game, and one going through these variations in a bit more detail, if you're ready to learn that. But the main thing to learn is the sort of places that you usually put your pieces, and be sensible after that. So you get to this sort of position and then think about how to develop the bishop. Against the Queen's Gambit, play a6, and against other systems, b6, and that's the Swiss defence. Hope you enjoyed that. See you next time.